Facebook Oversight Board. And I'm here with Kyle Taylor, who's on the steering committee of the board and is also the founder of Fair Vote, which has been campaigning for a change in electoral legislation around political campaigning and ads. And we've got Sam Jeffers, who co-founded Sam, I think, Who Targets Me. And we're going to do a sort of deep dive into the very, very murky world of the Facebook ads transparency library and what it says about the state of the Trump and Biden campaigns. Here we are just a few weeks out from the US election, and actually whether those transparency tools are fit for purpose and whether the campaigns are following the rules. So the idea is that it's a sort of lifetime snapshot of what's actually happening on the Facebook platform right now. But Sam, can you just introduce yourself and tell us how you got into this and how you developed these tools in the first place? Because I remember when it came out, it was this sort of like magic device that gave us a little insight into what was happening.
Yeah, so I mean, so going way back, I used to work on political campaigns, and I think as over time they became less and less grassrootsy and more powered by kind of ads and data, I began to lose sort of faith in the way that the internet was enabling campaigns to take place. And obviously, post 2016 with the Brexit referendum and then the Trump election, but also the 2015 UK election, you began to see this change from sort of the promise of the grassroots era, which is kind of Obama 2008, 2012, through to a much more sort of data and money powered paradigm. And so in 2017, when the election was announced, me and my co-founder Louis, we decided we'd try and build a way of interpreting what was going on Facebook, particularly in the advertising during that election campaign. So we built a browser extension, which you can
British
general election. Yeah. So in 17. Yeah. So we built this piece of software that is still available. Anyone who wants can install it in their browser, and it will kind of tell you more about the political ads you're being targeted with. At the moment, there's got lots of cool new stuff in it for the US election. I basically started to crowdsource a data set around what was happening in political ads and look at how campaigns were spending their money on the internet and what they were saying and who they were saying it to and all these sorts of things. And so that was the first kind of window into, what was going on Facebook. And over time, as we kind of tried to, with others, apply more pressure for more transparency from the platforms in terms of the advertising data that they would publish, gradually they began to publish more data. And so we arrive in 2020 where we're doing a kind of mixture of still crowdsourcing our data and trying to help individuals understand what they're being targeted with, but also using tools like the Facebook ad library to sort of pull out data in vast quantities and start to try and learn something from it.
So essentially, if you're looking at the US election right now, how many ads are being pumped out on a daily basis? Right,
I mean, yeah, oh God, that's huge number. Across the whole piece, tens of thousands a day. I mean, we mainly are monitoring the two presidential campaigns, and you'll see quite frequently the Trump campaign launched 10,000 ads and variations in a day across 20 plus different Facebook pages that they're running stuff on. The Biden campaign will launch less, a few thousand, and lots of these are just kind of repetitious of themselves. There are hundreds of variations of the same ad being launched, this one being targeted over here and this one being optimized over there and these sorts of things. But it's still a pretty Herculean effort just to keep an eye on what's going on and understand what they're doing at any given time.
So how easy is Facebook making it? So in terms of accessibility for researchers like yourself, is this properly transparent? Could I just go and have a look and figure out and be able to see what's going on? Or does it actually sort of require different tools, and how easy is it to use?
It's a mixture of both. So obviously we're pretty pleased that Facebook has made any data available at all, right? I mean, the biggest problem.
Why are you pleased, Sam? Why are you pleased?
The biggest problem here is that governments haven't mandated anything, right? I mean, there's no changes in law here. There's no Electoral Transparency Act. There's no Honest Ads Act. There's no updates to UK electoral law, European electoral law, or American electoral law. So like,
we're totally dependent upon what.
Yeah. So obviously, you know, in some sense, we're sort of, you know, pleased for the benevolence of the platform at having provided some data, you know, in the first place. And it's possible, I suppose, that they could have tried to stonewall for year after year and said that this stuff was commercially sensitive or something. So there is, you know, something good in having that data, because we can actually see what's going on. You know, we do some of our work just using the ad library tool, which anyone can go to and you know, search for different terms and look at different advertisers and try and work out what's going on. It's not terribly useful when people are advertising at huge scale. It's quite hard to kind of get a read on the overall levels of activity, and different data is available at different times. And there are various weaknesses that we'd probably like to see corrected. But to really do the kind of meaty work, and us and a number of other projects are doing this for the 2020 election, you're using their API and you're, you know, querying that data directly and trying to build new methods of analysis on top of it. And that has its own challenges, because obviously you have to be, you know, programmers and, you know, speak the language of the way they present the data and all of those sorts of things.
So basically, Sam, we're going to do, excitingly, we're going to do a show and tell, aren't we? You're going to take us.
We're going to try and do a show and tell, yeah.
Of down the sort of almost like the Victorian sewage system of the Facebook ads library. But I just want to explain, because I think probably some people may not be aware of this. In 2016, the last time around, when we know the Russians, for example, were one of the many people advertising on Facebook's platform, we had no visibility at all, did we, into what was happening and what was being targeted at who.
Yeah, exactly. So both 2015, 2016 elections, even the 2017 UK election, there was still no data available about any of this stuff really at all. And it wasn't until, I think, early in 2018, they started to publish some basic information. And then later that year, this kind of ad library emerged. And since then, it's sort of evolved a bit further. But yeah, it was the first time. This is the first, you know, US election where this data has been available at this depth.
And what's amazing to me is that there has absolutely been zero. There's been zero. What I was going to say, movement on Facebook's part to make this retrospective, which it could. So, for example, it could put up the library for 2016. We could be able to search actually what were the Russians doing exactly where, and what were the PACs doing. In the Brexit referendum, for example, that's just been lost to history. They're refusing to hand that over. Do you think that there is an argument that they should make that retrospectively available to researchers and academics like yourself, lawmakers, find out what actually went on in these elections?
Yeah, I mean, I think what's really hard about any of this is that it's, you know, you're trying to put it all in context always, right? So Facebook is one of many tools being used by campaigns at any one time, and so like, looking back and even looking at what's happening now, it's sometimes you're just overwhelmed by the data. So I think there are definitely challenges to it. But on the other hand, technically, yeah, there's no huge argument against that sort of thing happening. And I think it would put a lot of people's minds to rest if they were to be able to see that data sort of directly. I mean, you know, one of the criticisms that a lot of researchers have about, you know, the things they do when they take down what they call sort of coordinated or inauthentic influence campaigns is that information just disappears. You know, you're not really told about it, and it's not really kind of shared anywhere. It's shared with a fairly select group of people. So it's often hard to see the bad things that happen because they just disappear.
Okay. Do you think you could do your share your screen?
Yeah, so I will. Yeah. So this is not the. Let me see if this works. This is a major new technological challenge. Here, let's use that.
And I'll let Kyle jump in and ask some questions too. Sorry, Kyle, I've been hogging.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
So I assume the whole world can see all the tabs I have open and everything else at the moment. And so we've, you know, there's full transparency for you right there. So this isn't the Facebook ad library. This is a tool that we've built called Decoder. And Decoder, the idea behind Decoder is that yes, the Facebook ad library presents lots of information about political ads on Facebook, but it doesn't present everything. And that one of the things that particularly the Trump campaign is doing, and to a lesser extent Biden, is through the URLs that they use in their ads, so all of the web addresses they're using in every single different ad, they actually tell us a little bit about what the intentions behind that ad actually is. So if I click into the tool we built here, you can start to see Like in these URLs, they're doing things like segmenting their audiences into 6 different groups. So they have groups that are sort of non-donors and people who are regular donors, monthly donors, these sorts of things. And we can start to see how much money they're spending and which ads they're targeting at those groups of people. We can see things like which Facebook pages they're running ads on and in which proportions. We can see what types of optimization methods they're using within Facebook. So are they optimizing for engagement and clicks, or are they optimizing for video views and these types of things? And so different ads will have different optimizations in order to show to different types of audiences. We can, for the first time, look at which ads are being targeted using Facebook custom audiences, which ones are being targeted using lookalike audiences.
Stop there, Sam. So
yeah, sure.
Just so on this, so can you explain what a custom audience is, and can you explain what a lookalike audience is, and,
of course,
and what those are based on?
So, all campaigns really want voter data, mostly supporter data, but voter data as well. And they want something like an email address or a name or a mobile phone number, or even just a cookie on your computer, like you visited a website and a cookie was dropped on your computer and so on. And what you can do with Facebook and Google is build what are called kind of custom audiences. So the idea is that you can target ads at just this particular group of people. It will match that data against their Facebook profiles. And so, if you've got an email list with 100 people on it, you can show ads to just those 100 people. And so this is really the basis of what people describe as kind of micro-targeting, where a campaign might take a bunch of data, profile voters in some way, split them up into lots of different groups, and then run individualized ads for each of those groups.
To be clear, so that would be data they'd have on people outside of Facebook that they've brought into Facebook.
Yeah. So, or you might have clicked an ad, and that creates a signal which could put you in a custom audience, or you might have filled out a sign-up form on their website, which would put you in a custom audience, or there's innumerable ways that these things get created. But basically, as long as Facebook knows, is kind of told who you are, and you have a Facebook profile, they can kind of show you an ad on that basis. So that's custom audience, and then lookalike audiences is the kind of like the one step remove of that. So if I take a bunch of people, all of whom are wearing, I don't know, we know they wear black jumpers every day or something, Facebook will go and find you other people who wear black jumpers and show ads to those people. So it's a way of saying, okay, well, we know that you're kind of leaning in our direction, towards our political campaign. We will try and show ads to people who fit your similar characteristics to you.
So Sam, let me translate that as well. So basically, the Trump campaign has a bunch of data from God only knows where, and it's able to plug that into Facebook's tools. And Facebook is going to use that data to match it to their own dodgy data to come up with some other targets for the Trump campaign to target their ads at. Is that sort of?
Yeah, and it's what I think is interesting here. I mean, the Biden campaign will almost certainly be using these methods in an almost identical way as well. Is that most of what we're seeing here is that particularly the Trump campaign is just using Facebook's tools quite as they were intended to be used. There's nothing particularly sophisticated necessarily about what's going on here. They're just plugging data into Facebook and showing ads to those people. And Facebook is kind of really, in a way, doing all the hard work behind the scenes to actually display that.
Mm. So, and have you got? Can you show us any examples of sort of, and what are the headlines of what? Oh, sorry, if you want to carry on down, Sam.
No. I mean, I think I was just scrolling down to one, but I think it's really interesting for the first time. So Trump literally labels the Trump campaign literally labels its ads depending on what it wants voters to do. So it will label ads that say fundraising, and in those ads it will only ever ask for money. And the ones that we find are really interesting are the ones that are labeled persuasion. So they're literally saying these ads' purpose is to persuade people, and that they often combine this with things like optimizing for engagement. So they're looking for, if you optimize your ads for engagement, that's going to show that ad to people who are more likely to like, comment, or share that particular ad on your behalf. So it's a way of kind of spreading your message to the friends and family of those people who are seeing that ad in the first place. And so, for us, that's kind of like the nub of the sort of persuasive part of their campaigning. Almost everything else they're doing is designed to generate resources, usually money, for the campaign. But so I think that's really interesting. I think it's also really interesting how rare that actually happens. You'd think that the point of a political campaign is to try and persuade persuadable voters. they're only running about 16% of their ads to persuade people at all. The vast majority of their activity is speaking to the converted, reaching people who already like Donald Trump, who've already given him some data, and are therefore, already in the bag, as it were. So I think that's terrifically interesting from a kind of campaigning perspective, that the campaign is not out there really trying that hard to win new voters at the moment. It seems quite over-focused in a way on that sort of messaging and preaching to the converted. I mean, if I click into here again, like, this tool is now available at decoder.whotargetsme, you can start to see there's 47,000 different persuasion ads that the Trump campaign has run and that we've grabbed over time. And these ones here are examples of
President Trump has spent the last sharing, 3.5 years. Sam, we can't see.
Oh, have I? No, I'm sorry. Here we go. Let's try.
Are you able to bring it back? Sounded exciting. We were going to.
There you go. So that, so here are 47,000 examples of persuasion ads being run that have been run by the Trump campaign.
Right. So can we actually see? I see. So can we see any of these?
Sure. So like these are all the different codes associated with this ad, and then as it loads up, so it says here, the title of the ad is "Joe Biden doesn't have the backs of police officers," and this is brought through from the Facebook ad library itself, but it's a video. Joe Biden's silence is encouraging rioters. Joe Biden empowers these people. The more you empower them, the more crime they go on to commit. This is pretty ominous.
Joe Biden's America, we will all be in danger.
Yeah, and so what we can learn from this is things like what we see from this is, okay, so this is targeted at people who haven't previously taken an action. It's not a fundraising ad. It's targeted at North Carolina. There's this kind of opaque number here, which is it's targeted at audience number 1349.
What does that mean?
Well, exactly. So like these, it might just be like one upload that they've made to Facebook of a data set, or it might be a defined group that they kind of keep going back to again and again. We can even go down to the level of seeing that like it's a 16:9 video that lasted 15 seconds. So they've really broken out almost all of the different things that they're kind of tracking within the campaign for performance purposes. This one here is optimized for awareness, so it's going to reach as many people as possible in North Carolina.
How many? Can we see some more of these ads, Sam? How many of these ads would you say contain outright lies?
I really have no idea. I mean, these sorts of things are, in one sense, like they're very Trumpian. They're political speech that's like stretched as far as it can possibly go, probably beyond breaking point for in kind of traditional campaign purposes. But in a sense, we've also learned to sort of read, that often he's more bluster than anything else. On the other hand, we do see ads from time to time that are, certainly feel like they're kind of over the edge in terms of even Facebook's policies, particularly during the pandemic about health misinformation and things like that. So obviously Trump is quite happy now to say, I'm immune to COVID and I've been cured, both words which are not exactly, medically proven, let's just say, and potentially put people at risk, right? If people think that once you've had it, you're safe and you're not, he's setting an awful example that will lead to more people dying. So, I think there are questions about what he's saying, particularly around the pandemic, that need to be treated very carefully. But again, a lot of the other stuff is very much in the sort of, in some sense, you can kind of read them as very classic American attack ads, just taken to another level.
But they are actually, I think, because I think there's a difference, isn't there? Because it's the difference between free speech and paid speech, isn't it? Because the point is that these are like, that was a lie, wasn't it? That, well, Joe Biden is encouraging people to commit crime.
Yeah, I mean, it's your but it's your classic, like, Joe Biden is, Joe Biden's silence, which silence, where, the moment you start getting into debating those things, you end up in all sorts of sort of weird places about what people should and shouldn't be allowed to say. I mean, it's pretty clear that the Biden campaign's response to that would be, no, that's not true. I'm not doing that, et cetera, et cetera. And so you end up in that kind of classic back and forth situation. I think it's, our view in Who Targets Me is like, it's really hard to sort of fact check these things because they're sort of ambiguously enough phrased that there's an opening for anyone to say most of the time what they want to say using these ads.
So what else? Oh, sorry, Carl.
Okay. I was going to say, I just had can we just go back one screen to where you can see the audience? I just want to get clear the audience ID code in terms of, so people understanding that,
so this
on
one,
an ad.
So this one here, so like they use, so we have 800, I think, and 50 or something examples of these audience ID codes. And so, broken down here by how many ads they've run against each code and how much money they've spent on each of these codes. And so some of them are kind of
very micro.
Yeah, very micro and very rarely used. I'm trying to find, we have a kind of a live example here somewhere, but it's kind of, here you go. So this is like audience number 0407, which they ran 44 ads and spent about $2,000 on. And they're always,
and it says you think they're military veterans.
So I mean, the reason we think they're military veterans is it's like he has this like official Veterans for Trump weekly approval poll is the name of the ads. A lot of the other ones are selling veterans merch as well. And so the assumption is that like there's a small segment of the Trump list somewhere that is like, we know these people are in the military. We've uploaded that to Facebook, and now we're going to run ads to try and encourage those people to sign up and buy stuff from us.
Within those groups, there's some stuff that's publicly available, like gender, geography, but there could be a bunch of other data on individuals in that group that's being overlaid that you can't actually still see.
Exactly. So there's plenty of data that's being overlaid that we still can't see. It's almost certain that they have big lists of who we think is in our column already, who we think is in the Biden column, socioeconomic backgrounds, where they live, zip codes, all the rest of it. There will be huge amounts of data behind all of this.
Behavioral as well, potentially.
Yeah, just so much stuff. And so like, things that we can do is we built a tool where you can look at these on timelines. So you can see like how they're being used in the last month and like different audiences kind of popping up and disappearing and being used. We've also built things where you can kind of compare how those audiences are being used against, different types of, I don't know, like targeting methods, for example, like which ones are using custom audiences, which ones are using lookalike audiences and things like this. So we're trying to build these tools so that people can explore this data themselves and hopefully begin to kind of see some of the patterns emerge and how it all actually works.
So can you show us something, Sam, that I think when I asked you before, what were the sort of headlines of what you think Trump is doing in these ads? You said that a lot of it was just asking for money. That seemed to be the biggest takeaway.
Yeah, I think one of the things that you might take from the Trump campaign, I mean, in many respects, is that it seems to be struggling, and we're only 20-something days out from the election, and they're still running a lot of ads to existing supporters asking for money, and that doesn't seem to me to be a particularly good place to be in when you are, people are already voting in quite large numbers, and we're entering the final weeks of a campaign where you've just had, a major setback of your candidate being sick and in hospital for half a week. So I mean, I think that I find that really surprising at this stage, that they're not doing more work to get out the vote and that they're still trying to find the money to pay for the last couple of weeks of the campaign.
Can we see any of those ads, Sam?
Yeah, sure. So I mean, this is through our lens. You can also see these in the Facebook ad library. But if I go all the way to the end, you've got ones here. I mean, this is going back all the way now until May, but you've got ones about Israel. You've got ones about how many supporters they have, these sorts of things. Let me try and find you a decent example, because I think one of the ads he's been running in the last few days has been like a video of him kind of almost, him immediately post his trip to the hospital, coming out and saying, I'm sort of better, I'm cured, now give my campaign money, and it's quite incongruous thing of him sort of talking about his health problems and then trying to sort of raise money off the back of it. I can't find it right this second, but I'll keep clicking around. Those two, they were literally 300,000, so it's not always the easiest to find the thing I'm looking for.
There was one other, just before, but let me say it now, Carol, but we can come back to it later. But there's a chart of how many ads per day on the home screen that was quite interesting, because I was just Googling some of those days to see what was going on those days. So for example, the 29th of September was the day of the first debate. So over 13,000 unique ads launched on that day. One one in July and one in August, I mapped to. One was the first press conference he'd done on COVID in ages. The second one was where he'd suggested people drink bleach. So there's sort of, you can see within the Facebook ecosystem, the ability to sort of steer a narrative with tons of micro-targeted ads around a specific day or blunder, potentially, which I just thought was quite interesting.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, I think we were, you know, certainly the debate, the post-debate, we were kind of ready for. We have another tool called Notify that we use that sends a daily email each day with what the campaigns have done in the last 24 hours in terms of new ads launched and you know, how many of them are new and totally distinct from each other and all the rest of it. So like certainly on the post-debate days, we saw the Trump campaign drop a hell of a lot of new ads. And yeah, like you say, like, you know, one of the amazing things and terrible things from a campaign's perspective is this ability to say what you want with no filter, you know, between you and the voter, really. So, you know, that's really the main benefit of these things, is that direct communication and there being no sort of media filter there. So yeah, after a debate that didn't go terribly well, dropping 13,000 ads was probably not an unexpected move on the part of the Trump campaign.
That's so interesting. And what about have you got visibility, Sam, here on these voting misinformation ads?
Well, I mean, I think it slightly depends on yeah. I mean, so you know, Trump himself, his kind of organic posts on Facebook are often flagged for being, you know, trying to sell voting misinformation, you know, voter fraud and these sorts of things. You know, from the ads themselves, I mean, one of the things that we have that's kind of fun to look through is this code called the ad campaign, and what you can see in some of these is almost the internal code name for some of the ads that the campaign is using. So some of them are pretty obvious, you know, end of quarter 600 refers to like fundraising matching at 600%. But then you'll find ones called like Dem corruption, you know, so you know, the Trump campaign perennially runs these ads, which are the Democratic corruption survey, you know, fill this out if you agree the Democrats are corrupt. Or he has one here, which is like the Biden earpiece. You know, he ran these ads saying that Biden was wearing an earpiece.
Are you able to see those?
So this is, you know, so he stopped running it now because obviously like time's moved on a little bit. But you know, Joe's begging for breaks during the debate. Check Joe's ears. He refused a drug test and declined an earpiece inspection. I mean, obviously it's, you know, this is definitely one that falls into the total lie category. And you know, here comes the ad itself when it loads. You know, but again, the strange thing about a lot of these ones that are more kind of lie-ish, I mean, not 100% sure I'm like this is the absolute trend, but is that they tend to be fundraising ads and they're already targeted at their existing supporters. So there's no one here who's seeing this who isn't already kind of in the Trump column. So in a way, they use almost the biggest misinformation seems to get used to try and get money out of the pockets of their own supporters, as opposed to trying to persuade real voters to sort of, you know, come and support Trump. I find that always quite striking in a way that, you know, you're not, in a way, you're lying to your own people more than you're lying to anyone else to try and persuade them.
And in terms of what you're seeing,
again,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go on.
So in terms of what you're seeing with, you know, examples of ads that violate Facebook's policies, are you seeing sort of broad, you know, action by Facebook or lingering ads staying much longer than the policy suggests they should? Like, where is Facebook's response in your perspective on their own policies?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've certainly seen some stories and some examples of ads that, you know, in particular, there was one that sort of linked together, you know, from memory, it was a sort of a Biden statement from 2015 about Syrian refugees, and you know, also this idea that, like, you know, that Biden still wanted to allow lots more Syrian refugees in, and that there was a kind of COVID risk associated with it. So Facebook decided that they didn't want, you know, these ads were kind of health misinformation and they shouldn't be on the platform. But they continued to run long after that story ran. And, you know, I find that a bit unclear, because you've got a policy, you said you're going to kind of apply this policy, and then after the fact, that ad continues to run. I mean, it continues to run on YouTube as well. So yeah, there are definitely lots of instances of inconsistency privacy and things that you think probably shouldn't be on the internet, but maybe they should. And well, now you've taken them down. So now clearly you think they shouldn't be on the internet. So maybe you should be taking them all down. So it's a strange situation when, you know, again, like people like us and journalists are trying to sort of moderate the platform for them.
Can I ask you a question, Sam? So one of the, we know that in 2016 that there were a whole ton of adverts which came from either PACs or also from unidentified groups, and we still have no idea who they were. Are you seeing ads like that? So political ads on behalf of a candidate, but from a group or an organisation that their identity is not actually known?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, we're not terribly well placed to sort of track the sources of funds of some of these organizations, but I think, you know, the main criticism I would have of these types of organizations is, you know, like no normal voter is going to know who America First policies are. I mean, America First policies and America First action are these kind of like pro-Trump, you know, Trump-affiliated campaigns. I think they were even set up by Brad Parscale, his campaign manager, former campaign manager. And, you know, you're in this position where you're seeing an ad from an organization and it's kind of, you know, rabidly pro-Trump, or, you know, even on the other side, you know, rabidly pro-Biden. And you're like, well, who are these people? And why are they appearing to me? And I think some of that has, you know, deeper issues to do with, you know, First Amendment rights in the US and Citizens United ruling in the courts and all the rest of it. But I think from a sort of voter's perspective, yeah, I look at these things and I'm like, who are you and why are you saying this stuff? And in American politics, that goes all the way down. You know, there are, you know, tens of thousands of organizations running political ads on Facebook at any one time. And, you know, and it's just, you know, you're just constantly having organizations and individuals and all the rest of it being thrown at you who you have zero context about.
Really. And just so, and in terms of what the Biden ad campaign are doing, can we see some of those? Do you see the same examples of lies and disinformation in those ads? Or
I mean, you know, the Biden campaign, as you might expect, is a lot more stable in the way that it presents itself and does things. You know,
their adverts for comparison, just so we can really see the.
Yeah, sure. I mean, okay. Well, here's one. This is like, no, I think let's find a good. I don't know. This is the Kamala Harris, you know, vice presidential announcement. I know that's going to take us off to the webpage. Sorry, I'm just clicking all the wrong links. You know, they typically feature a picture of Joe Biden smiling. You know, they have a donation link and all the rest of it. I mean, one of the things that the Biden campaign doesn't share information in the same way that the Trump campaign does through its URLs. So we know a little bit less about the way that they're doing their targeting and which audiences they're going after and these sorts of things. You know, a Biden campaign ad tends to be a bit more sort of grassrootsy and boring. Yeah, boring. I mean, they are, you know, the campaign strategy is solidity, you know, no mistakes, don't open up any fronts, and you know that's absolutely represented in their Facebook ads.
I mean, they do seem, but what's so striking about that is that it just seems like it's the tactic that, you know, we know was used in 2016, which was these adverts which were really sort of emotionally driven, and those we know sort of get the most engagement, don't they? Whereas the Biden campaign seems to be going for this. Just, I mean, those really did look quite staggeringly boring, didn't they?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that one of the next little projects for us is to try and look at the engagement numbers that come with some of the posts that are being promoted. You know, obviously Donald Trump has a huge Twitter and Facebook following to start with. So, you know, sometimes the numbers that are associated with some of the posts he makes are, you know, look absolutely staggering, you know, sort of tens of thousands of likes and shares and comments and all the rest of it. Whereas Biden, you know, starts from quite a long way back. But, you know, actually it looks to us like Biden gets a higher proportion of engagement often, which, you know, can just be a good signal of enthusiasm for the campaign. So, you know, relatively speaking, I don't think Biden does that badly. And maybe Trump has actually turned off quite a large proportion of his audience. He has lots of people following him from a kind of rubbernecking perspective, but I'm not necessarily sure that it's, you know, maximizing, you know, anything for his campaign.
Are we able to see a Joe Biden persuasion ad and what that looks like? So one which isn't targeted at his supporters, but is targeted at the people he's trying to persuade over.
Yeah, I mean, so again, they kind of sort of label their ads differently. So I mean, we've got this topic here which they call kind of engagement ads, which are more about sort of like, it's time for us to hear from the grassroots. It's time for the debate against Mike Pence. So it's sort of trying to kind of pump up some energy for the campaign. It's sorry for all the pings if you can hear those. It's trying to get people to kind of involve themselves in the campaign, identify themselves as Democratic voters, those sorts of things. That's all there. Driving people to events, driving people to volunteering. It tends to be that the Biden campaign's ads are quite action focused at this stage.
More get out the vote than
get out the vote, register to vote, make phone calls for us, these types of things. So here's, this is an interesting one here. So like, this is as far as we can tell, this is like Facebook offers a targeting option where you can engage with people who kind of lean liberal in the US, sort of Democratic supporting and all the rest of it. So we think here's a segment of audience that's like literally targeted at liberals. So those types of things there. But yeah, unfortunately, the Biden campaign is, unfortunately or probably fortunately for them, they share less data about what they're up to.
That's interesting. So Sam, do you want to, maybe we should just go back off screen share and just sort of wrap up in the last bit. Thank you so much.
Stop looking over here at my other screen.
That tool is now publicly
available. So that's public. So if people go to
URL, Sam?
so if you go to decoder.whotargets.me, you can have a play around with that data and have a look at what we're doing.
Fabulous. So is there anything else, if there were some sort of takeaways that you wanted to sort of, that people should know about the way that Facebook ads are being used right now in the US election? Is there anything that's your sort of top lines?
Yeah, I think the thing that's always is unsurprising but kind of still somewhat surprising to see is that the Trump campaign is just not as good at this stuff as they said they were. In 2016, they built this huge myth about, the magic of the campaign, and they were testing, 70,000 different ads a day, and they were running 6.5 or whatever million ads over the period of the campaign. It does seem like the way that they do stuff has changed, and that it's become, a bit more prosaic, a bit more predictable. I mean, they do less, distinctive content each day. They launch relatively fewer ads than the Biden campaign does in terms of new content. And it seems that a lot of the time they're trying to sort of get blood out of the same stone all of the time. They have their support base. Those are the people we talk to. We talk to almost no one else. And so unless over the last few weeks of the campaign we start to see this kind of explosion in persuasion activity, and that they suddenly start to really reach lots more people, it does look a bit more prosaic and than maybe anyone would have expected. I mean, particularly given all the events of the last few weeks.
So, and I've got a question, which is that, so we're talking about those, you sort of said there's tens of thousands of others political ads which are not from the main campaigns.
Mm-hmm.
So theoretically, if the Internet Research Agency, the St. Petersburg troll farm, wanted to be placing ads again in the US election, would it be that difficult?
I mean, there's, they would have to just pay an American to run the ads for them, right? So, I mean, that's not terribly hard to imagine them being able to do. And I think the risk about some of these things is maybe just like you talk the IRA and the St. Petersburg guys into a bigger role and a bigger impact than they would have. I mean, I think it's very unlikely they're going to run anything at scale that's going to influence the result. But what they might be able to do is to run some ads and say, look, we paid these people. I mean, there was even an example the other week where they were paying journalists to write, pieces for them. And I think that sense of like, well, even a tiny exposure of the American election to some kind of Russian effort is a problem, probably overstates the actual impact of it. And we do need to be a bit careful about, sort of looking for things that are actually very small. I mean, this is why we spend so much time looking at the big presidential campaigns, is because, once you're spending $8 million a week, you're starting to actually do some stuff. Whereas if you're spending, $100, it's gone in a second.
And can you see, so sorry, this was a question, in terms of that, can you sort of see this sort of massive effort in particular places, in particular swing states? Is that possible to see sort of money being pumped into certain locations and certain voters?
Yeah, so to some extent. So obviously the Facebook ad library and the data that we're presenting here will show you it at the state level. And so, I mean, it's fairly well known what the list of swing states are in this election and which ones the campaigns are kind of going after. If you wanted to go more detailed, and I think there is some value to being a bit more granular in that information, you can install our browser extension, which will kind of look at the sort of more localized level and see as it's popping up in particular counties and with particular types of voters. I mean, we're not yet at that level of granularity in the data that Facebook's presenting that you can really read in any particular detail. I mean, one of the interesting things actually about YouTube is that in the Google ad library, they do publish it down to the zip code level. So you can really often see the Trump and Biden campaigns targeting, Black and Hispanic neighborhoods, for example, in much more detail than Facebook provides. So it's, again, like there's no rules, there's no universal rules on this. Everyone's doing it differently and you see different things in different places. But yeah, if we wanted this data from Facebook, we'd need to either build a big crowdsourcing effort or really press them to start publishing this stuff.
Well, I think, sure, yeah, I mean, exactly. It shouldn't be up to individuals, should it? There should be information which the platform, I mean, I think that's one of the sort of things that we're trying to get over is that there could be more transparency for starters.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a bunch of,
even in what those ads where seems to be
exactly.
Kind of I think even key public, I've frozen, haven't I?
No, I'm just talking over you in a really rude way. So you should continue. I was going to accentuate your point, which is like, we have data here that would be really interesting in terms of like how the delivery of ads happens, right? Oh no, you have frozen. I don't know what's going on. It's bound to happen.
You're fine.
Yeah.
Carry on.
So like one thing I'd love to know is like these different optimization things that Facebook does, right? If you want to show it for awareness or you want to show it for engagement, it's like, if I showed this ad to 1,000 people, how many people would see it? Right, and we don't know any of these kind of types of questions about both the targeting and delivery of this stuff. So hopefully we'll learn more as time passes.
Well, listen, Sam, thank you so much for that. I feel like we've really nerded out there, and
it was great.
I'm incredibly impressed that this is so much work that's gone into providing that. So thank you so much for your public service in that.
Yeah, I should give a shout out to Russell Garner, who built all the software here, because he's done all this for free. So he's an amazing individual who has worked his butt off to get this done.
Right. Well, thank you, because it is helping to shine a little bit of sunlight into the murk beneath the platform. So I think we'll probably wrap up there, unless there's anything. Is there any, Sam, have you got any final words, or Carl, have you got anything? You good?
No, I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure to show this off. Yeah, it's live now.
Thanks, Sam.
Have a look. Yeah.